In a B2B environment, somebody comes to our booth, says, look, I want to learn more. They talk a little bit, and then we don't respond. Or they fill out a web form for 38.4 hours. You should be like, okay, great. You want to learn more. You want to buy something. You want to engage with me. I'm on it. Let's do a hot transfer to a seller if I'm a BDR. Let's engage immediately. And we do not.
I want to welcome you to my sales podcast, where we have one focus and one focus only. That is helping you, the sales community, and sales leaders create more conversations with more qualified buyers, ultimately leading to improving your sales productivity and closing more deals. Each show, you will hear from sales leaders, practitioners, and influencers to help you find, engage, and connect with more buyers. I'm Mario Martinez Jr., and you're now listening to the Selling with Social Sales Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the AAISP Annual Leadership Summit, where the sales community comes together to learn, share, and network. Join us this April 16th through the 18th in Chicago. Visit www.aa-isp.org and click Leadership Summit 2019. And to save 30% off your registration, use the code Vengreso 30%. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with my friend and CEO and founder of InsideSales.com, Mr. Dave Elkington. I am super excited, man, to have you here with me. Thanks for joining me here on Selling with Social.
No, hey, thanks for having me. And honestly, it is my pleasure. I have been wanting to get onto this show, but you finally let me sneak in.
Oh, and finally let you sneak in. I finally got you. That's the real truth of it all. For those of you listening in, you probably are wondering, what the heck, man? Mario, you sound like really nasally. I've got the plague. Whatever that plague is that's going around here, I've got that plague. This cold is a real big one, and it's the chest, the cough. So I may cough throughout the program. So this is a live podcast, ladies and gentlemen. So bear with me, and I hope you'll excuse the cough. But we've got with me Dave, and Dave is the man, the myth, and the legend, the man of the hour. He's CEO and founder of Inside Sales. And we at Vengreso have worked with Inside Sales a number of times, And specifically, we're going to be spending some time talking about AI, talking about some actionable things around sales cadences, email prospecting, sales forecasting. We got a lot to cover here for you sales folks, sales leaders, and marketing leaders. But Dave, before we get into some of the good content that you've got here for this particular topic, do me a favor, talk a little bit about you. Where you're from? How'd you come up with InsideSales.com?
Every founder's got a creation myth that kind of gets them into whatever crazy situation they're in. And so mine is, it's as crazy as everybody else's. When I was in college, I loved AI and machine learning and the concept of I was that nerdy kid who would watch Star Trek and loved data, right? I loved all that kind of stuff. So I'm studying philosophy and I'm like, hey, I wonder, and I'm studying people like Aristotle or Descartes or, just the philosophers. And I'm like, okay. And they all kind of hypothesize that the way humans think is super systematic. It's mathematical. So I wrote a thesis, and my honors thesis, and it was around how humans think mathematically, and you can replicate the human thinking process or learning process. So then I realized that no one was actually paying people to do that. And I decided to go into banking because the philosophy firms weren't hiring that year. Then I went into venture, and I'm like, I kind of went back to my passion. I said, and it's interesting, it was during the .com, and people were raising crazy amounts of money, and they were making huge amounts of money on just stupid ideas. And I'm like, look, I'm not dumber than any of those guys. I'm at least at that same level. So I go back to get a master's in computer science, see if I could mathematically represent my philosophical theory. And inside sales is ultimately my master's thesis, right? That's kind of how I got here.
Wow. And so did you finish the master's thesis and you?
No. Okay. You know what? Rub it in. I did not. Look, my wife reminds me, my kids remind me. No. So I actually didn't. So right as I was finishing up the master's degree and inside sales started to take off. And so a lot of founders, I had to kind of measure return for time. And I'm like, look, and it played out, right? Inside sales probably played out better than that last 6-8 months of my master's degree.
I don't know, bro. I'm going to say you finished your master's degree with the creation of InsideSales.com. That by far has been more successful than probably your master's.
Yeah, all right.
I love it. So, I always, as you know, listening to the podcast for Selling with Social, I always ask everybody, tell us something nobody would know about you by looking at any of your social profiles. Give me something juicy. We've had everything from I've got kids, boring, to an extra appendage, which those of you who are listeners, you know what show I'm talking about. So tell me something juicy. I want something good.
Even if I had an extra appendage, I'm not telling you that. Like that one, like let's, I'd take that to the grave. Weird stuff about me. So I don't look at, if you don't see my profile, I'm, 6'4", blonde, typical looking guy. But my grandma was Israeli. My grandpa was Lebanese. So, I grew up being sworn and cursed at in every Middle Eastern language, including Yiddish. And so I don't speak Hebrew that well, but if someone swears at me, I know what they're saying.
All right. So swearing in Hebrew.
Yeah, I got that nailed.
I love it. Now, you actually speak a couple languages though, right?
Yeah. I was one of those guys who never wanted to graduate because when you're a student, you can get away with anything. Like people are like, oh yeah, he's unemployed. He lives in his mom's basement. He's got an extra appendage, but it's cool. He's a student. And so I think I spent 5 years in my undergraduate. Now, one of those points, I dropped out of school here in Utah, BYU. I applied to the Hebrew University in Israel, went there for almost 2 years, dropped out, reapplied, transferred my credits. So I speak Hebrew reasonably well. I speak a little bit of Arabic. I speak Japanese. I went on an LDS mission to Japan. So I speak a couple languages. Let's put it in past tense. I spoke.
You spoke. All right. Well, either way, I want to be as smart as you because I do a horrible job at Spanish. And of course, I look Hispanic and that's a bad thing. Every time I go to Mexico, they start talking to me and I'm like, más despacio, por favor, más despacio, right? I want you to not too fast. You can't go too fast for me because I am gringo. But in any case, nice. Well, listen, I want to get into some meat here. There's a lot of topics of conversation around AI. Let's spend a little bit of time talking about what is AI and what should we be thinking and doing about this? And how do we then, as sales leaders and salespeople as well, take some of the data and the analytics that's out there and figure out how to apply it in our real life, right, to help us close more deals. So let's start out with that. Talk about what is AI.
This is a problematic topic because there's so much buzz. There's so much hyperbole in the market. I mean, it's like a jargon soup of what AI is. There's machine learning, there's big data, there's data science. So look, AI in its most simple form is the category of math that basically finds patterns, signal out of data. That's all it is. And it's something as simple as correlation. If you're just looking at a spreadsheet and you're all right, this is an anomaly there, or this is a signal, every time this happens, this also happens, that kind of thing. That's AI, all the way to sophisticated stuff as complex as deep nets that you've probably heard of. But AI is an umbrella term that kind of means anything that uses math to find signals out of noise. Now, here's the other thing that most people don't realize. That math has been around for 50, 60 years. So some ways I'm why is there hype? Because in 1958, this is real, 1958, Arthur Samuel from IBM, the grandfather of AI, of machine learning, was already using expert systems and decision trees, which are two types of the math, to automate an AI-based checkers game. 1 year later, Stanford Labs, these are smart people, smart gals probably, they're using neural nets to filter echo and jitter out of phone conversations. So again, 50, 60 years ago, almost 70 years ago. So think about this. If today a startup were to come and say, look, we're going to use neural nets and AI to make better call quality, they'd be funded in 20 minutes. The renaissance of AI is not about the math. Now, look, there is some new math. There's good math, but it is not about the math. It's more about a combination of three things. But it's table stakes. You can go download the math. There's math packages that more or less do all of the AI machine learning math. So it is about the math, but that's the basics. Number two, it's data. And number three, it's workflow. And if you don't combine all of those together really well, it's actually kind of useless. I'll give you a quick example. On the data side, here's your rule of thumb, because look, in a sales environment, data and the right contacts, the right customer information is everything. But there's an inverse relationship in terms of the availability of data and the value of that data. Meaning, if everybody has it, it actually doesn't have much value. If I'm buying data from ZoomInfo or Hoover's and it's the same list everybody else is buying and calling, it's junk. If I've got a group out of the Philippines or out of Singapore that are, scrubbing and building a proprietary list, that's pretty good data. So unique data is key. And then the last thing is workflow. If you just you can run some math and give somebody a lead score. We all have lead scores out of Marketo, out of, whatever. As salespeople, do we trust an arbitrary lead score? We don't. And because we don't know what's going on. So the lead score needs to be blended into my workflow, meaning it's got to be prioritized. When I click next or I need more information, it's got to be seamlessly blended into what I do. So those are the three key elements of how to make AI actually effective.
So why so much buzz about it?
That's the right question, actually. It's because data is now available. Now, like short version, there's like this history of what's gotten us here. You had really databases were limited to how much data they could store. It just became unpractical. Well, Google and Yahoo came up with a new way of storing data that allowed them to not store millions of records, but billions of records. It's called a flat file data system. And they open source some of this stuff. And all of a sudden, companies like Cloudera and Hadoop and Hortonworks and all these quote unquote big data companies, all they really are big database companies. That's one thing. The second thing is this cloud computing. When Benioff at Salesforce, invented the cloud, you can argue whether he did or he didn't, but let's give him credit.
I like Al Gore invented the internet.
Dude, say like they're buddies. I think they are buddies actually. So as the cloud is created, rather than storing all of our data in these silos in our company, now it's all together in a single cloud. So now I can store it and people are all contributing, which allows us to go run huge analysis. Like when I was studying in school, I was a nerd, I'll own it. And I thought I was going to go be like the inventor of the Higgs boson of machine learning algorithms. Like I was going to unlock the human brain mathematically. And what I found was the math it's been around. It's actually about the data. And so like the reason it's a thing today is because we're storing massive amounts of data. And somebody listening to this, you have treasure troves of data sitting in your CRM, sitting in your database, sitting in your phone, your inbox. Like we've got crazy amounts of data. If we unlock it, it is money in the bank.
So how do we unlock it? And actually, I think you guys actually unlocked some of this data with one of your recent studies on sales cadences and email prospecting. I don't know if there's any of these are applicable, but I'm assuming that you've probably unlocked some of this stuff through talking about sales cadences as an example. Yeah.
Yeah. To give you a reference, what we do, and there's this idea around AI in our lives. So AI today is ubiquitously used in our consumer lives, but in our business life, it's not. It's a weird thing. So I'll give you an example. As we're building our products, we wanted to go analyze the analogy of our personal life and our work life. And is there a way we can go apply it? So what we found was sellers today, if you look at their personal life, they wake up to an AI optimized climate in their house with like Google Nest or something like that. They go on an AI optimized run. They grab coffee at a recommendation from an AI optimized breakfast place. I'll even take an AI optimized route to work, but then I get to work and sure enough, crickets. We're not actually using it, but it's okay because at lunch, I go onto Amazon and it's using machine learning and AI to like recommend a purchase. I get back to work, nothing. At home, Netflix is AI, Amazon is AI, Tinder's AI. All of my personal life completely encompassed in machine learning and AI, but not work. And so as we look at how can we apply AI at work, we found there's three things. One is you've got to get your data. You've got to get access to your data. So at InsideSales.com, what we've created is it's called a co-op, or we call it collective intelligence. And you can do this, not an advertisement, because what I'm going to tell you, you can do this without us. Like I'm going to give you stuff that you can go back to your office and you can sell more, make more money. But it's basically benchmarking or comparing to other people. We do it in mass. So we have, 1,000+ customers that use it, American Express, T-Mobile, CenturyLink, Dell, whatever. As they use the technology, we anonymize it, but we're aggregating all of that learning across the entire customer base. So we've got over 170 million unique worldwide buying profiles and over 100 billion selling experiences. Now, how do you do this on a small scale? You go talk to your buddy who sells at another company and you say, what's working for you over here? So we do this like organically. But what AI brings to us is the ability to do it at scale. The second thing, so once you get your data, we do research. Go find best practices, right? So go, and I'm going to share, like you actually brought it up. We're not a research company at all, but it's a nice byproduct of the data we have. We sell a sales technology platform using this idea of collective intelligence and AI. But we kick off so much data. It's like exhaust from a car. We're like, well, let's go find best practices and let's raise the industry and let's go do some best practices. So let me share a couple of the things we found in our research. Like, it's kind of stunning. Like, we're bad at knowing what to do. And so we just did a study around successful sales cadences.
Around successful what?
Sales cadences. Meaning
cadence. Yeah. Okay.
So how do I engage with a prospect, leader, customer? Like, what's the right things like how many attempts should I make? What media? Should it be a phone call? Should it be an email, a social media? What's the duration? What's the spacing between each one of my attempts? What's my response? And even what kind of content should I use? And what we asked people, there was hundreds of people in this, I think thousands of people in this survey. And we asked them a couple of things. We said, what works? What doesn't work? What do you think works? And I'll give you an example. In how many attempts? So if I've got a new lead, and let's call it a marketing generated lead, and I'm saying, how many attempts should I make before I give up? People believe they should make 15. So that's what they think they're doing. They say, what are you doing? They think they're doing 15. In reality, they're doing an average of 3.5 attempts. It's kind of like going to the gym. If you ask me if I go to the gym, I go every day. Truth of the matter, I get there a couple of times a month, on a good month. But then we said, all right, but what's the best practice? This was in the data. It's actually 7. So we think we should do 15 attempts. In reality, we're only doing 3.5. But the best practice is 7. And what's cool, and when you look at data from AI and machine learning and analysis like this, you can actually benchmark yourself against this. At that 7 attempts, you've got a 67% improvement over that 8th attempt, meaning you're actually wasting your effort typically, not always, but typically you drop almost 70% effectiveness on that 8th attempt. So there's a huge drop off. So that's one of your findings. Here's another one. If you mix your media, just going from 2 media, and by media I mean, is it a phone call? Is it a voicemail? Is it email? Is it social media? Is it a mailer? Things like that. If I go from 2 media to 3 media, I have a 4x, 400% higher contact rate, meaning people are more likely to engage 400% more than if I just use 2 media. So a phone call and an email, if I add a mailer or if I add social media to that. So like, this is media improvement. And then the third one in this one.
Before you go on that third one, that one is very interesting. So if you mix your outreach and you go from 2 medias to 3 medias, meaning like maybe a phone call and an email, which is 2, to a phone call, email, and social media.
That's right.
Then you said the study showed that you can increase your contact rate by 400% chance.
That's correct. 400% higher. And when I say contact rate, that's like engagement rate. Because, on a phone, it's a contact rate. If it's an email, are they going to respond? If it's social media, are they going to respond? So it's an engagement rate. And think about that in the average. So we did the study and we asked people, what do you think you do? People think they use over 4 media type. Reality is they actually use 2. And again, the best practice is at least 3 or more. So we're not there. Like, we're not meeting the mustard.
So I'm curious on this one. They use at least 2. Did you have any findings on the 2 most common one? I'm going to imagine phone and email.
It is. It's phone, email, then voicemail, social media. Then it gets very fragmented. I mean, there are a lot of different types. In fact, I even have it in my notes here. But mailers is actually making a comeback. Some industry, crazy as it sounds, use fax. Like healthcare, fax has actually made a comeback. Legal has made, fax has made a comeback. So in many cases, it's industry specific. So again, this is the kind of stuff, when you start digging into data, it is meaty, it is impactful, and it changes your effectiveness.
I want to get to your third point in just a second, because I cut you off there on that second one. But going back to the study showed that people say that they think they're using 4, but in reality, they're really only using 2. And the ones that are phone and email, that to me is a fundamental broken thing. It's broken. Yeah. It's massively broken. And it's not because of AI. It's not because of lack of technology. This, in my opinion, is a sales leadership problem. And I'm gonna go off on a kick here because this is something I've been very passionate about. I think I mentioned to you this cost a couple times we talked, but last year I did 202 executive level meetings, right? 202. And of the 202, 70% of them were with sales leaders having to explain that this thing called the internet is actually not going away. It boggles my mind that we are still taking the same old antiquated processes by which we taught ourselves and we taught our salespeople to sell from 20 years ago, which is when I started out 21 years ago. And fast forward now 21 years later from a technological advancement perspective. And here we are still, the study shows that you're still only using phone and email. My God, have we not realized, sales leaders waking up, have we not freaking realized that the buyer has definitely opened up more channels for us to engage? And we as sales leaders must think about, how do I help my salespeople leverage the omni-channel approach to prospecting?
It's staggering. It's kind of mind-blowing. And here's what's worse. I'm going to get you riled up now. What we found is they're the same email templates. So not only are people using email, they're buying technologies that provide 24 email templates in a cadence or in a sequence, and we're all using the same stuff. So as a buyer, you know it. So we're not actually thinking about the buyer's experience at all. So number one, we're not trying to reach out to them in a way that is meaningful to them. It could be social media, it could be direct mail, it could be fax or whatever, it could be video. And when we do, however, use phone and email, we've actually stopped thinking about it. We're using templates. We're not even customizing the templates. It's really, like, as we looked at it, it's awful.
I'm going to let you get to the third one after we do this quick program sponsor break. But right on this lines, I had a sales rep reach out to me, and it was this week. And the sales rep said, he wrote, "Hey, we're definitely helping SaaS companies to be able to help it grow and expand. And I saw Vengreso, and it takes basically Vengreso / the digital sales transformation company. Now, our company name is Vengreso, but the digital sales transformation company comes from the added content that we added into our LinkedIn company profile. And so what they're using is they're using a scraper off of LinkedIn that is scraping the company name. And I know exactly every single time I get a message where it says Vengreso / the digital sales transformation company, I know that you've scraped it off of LinkedIn. Because if you did any level of research, you would see it's Vengreso is the company. All you have to do is go to Vengreso.com. Anyways, nonetheless, he said, what we're doing is we're helping SaaS-based companies grow their sales revenue by over 10x, and here are the companies that we've helped. And after doing some research about Vengreso / the digital sales transformation company, I think we can help you. And I wrote back, that's all I wrote back, we're not a SaaS company. And that was it. And he wrote back, oh, I'm so sorry. You're right. It's a service-based company. Nonetheless, we still love to be able to help you. And I was like, dude, you lost me. You lost me as a buyer because you could not freaking figure out how to take your template and how to modify it to my company and who I am. And by the way, there is no shortage of information about the companies that we're prospecting to. There's very few times. Now, if you're selling to a small pop, Joe's Plumbing, anything like that, maybe so. But very few times in the B2B, mid-size to enterprise, and even small biz that you cannot find information, and it just kills me. But here's what I want to do. Before you talk about that third element that I cut you off on, we're going to listen to this message from our program sponsor. Vengreso will once again be joining the AAISP and hundreds of sales leaders in Chicago for the 11th annual AAISP Leadership Summit, and we want you to be there with us. Sales leaders from around the globe will come together for a learning experience unlike any other. Attendees will find pre-event workshops, large and small group learning, a technology expo, as well as the annual Inside Sales Awards Gala. Join us in Chicago on April 16th through the 18th, and for all of our listeners, visit www.aa-isp.org. Go to the Leadership Summit 2019, and to save 30% off your registration, use the code Vengreso 30%. That's Vengreso 30%. All right. Right before that break, I got into a passionate, obviously, exchange here, talking about some of the challenges. Loved your data on sales cadences. You talked about the 7 attempts, that after the 7th attempt of outreach, making outreach by a salesperson, you drop 70% effectiveness by going to number 8. That's amazing. All right, sales leaders, you're listening in. Look at your cadence program. That's the point, right? Look at your cadence program. How many times are you having someone reach out to an individual, whether it's automated or non-automated? And then the next one you said is, if you mix up your outreach by going from 2 media outreach to 3 media outreach, and you increase your engagement rate by 400%. That's like going phone, email, and adding in, say, social media or a video message or a text, or you fill in the blank, right?
Yeah, whatever.
What was the third item?
There's lots, but the third one that I thought would get you worked up again is response time. So meaning somebody raises their hand to one of your marketing efforts. It could be come to you at an event. It could be a web lead. It could be something, right? Somehow you have a hand raiser. The question we asked people was, what do you think your response time is? And they believe their response time on average, and there are well over 10,000 examples in this, but they believe their response time, when I say 10,000 examples, this is 10,000 companies we've queried on this one, 24 hours. So they think they take 24 hours to respond. The actual is 38.4 hours. So days, not day, days. Now, here's the thing that's going to just stagger you, I think. The optimal is 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And if you respond back within just 5 minutes versus 30 minutes, you're 100x more likely to get them to engage. Before you even respond to that, because I know you're like, your mind should be blowing up if it's not. And look, some people know this. We've had this research out for a while, but think about if you were to walk into Nordstrom's today and say, I'm looking to buy a $200 pair of shoes. I like these ones, they're Echo or they're whatever, right? And the guy says, great, I'll get back to you in 38.4 hours. Like, we're going to walk. Like, there's no way we're going to stick around. Or you go into Baskin Robbins and say, look, I want some Rocky Road. And they say, great, come back in 34 hours. So that's what we're doing. We're in a B2B environment. Somebody comes to our booth, says, look, I want to learn more. They talk a little bit, and then we don't respond. Or they fill out a web form for 38.4 hours. You should be like, okay, great. You want to learn more. You want to buy something. You want to engage with me. I'm on it. Let's do a hot transfer to a seller if I'm a BDR. Let's engage immediately. And we do not. Think about how much money your clients and even you spend in marketing. You are literally burning that money. You're just wasting that money.
That's amazing to me how this issue is so fundamentally broken when it comes to the response time. Everybody listening in, when I personally receive a phone call after I send an inquiry in and put something on a form, if I get a phone call within a matter of minutes, my immediate reaction is, wow, that was fast. Yeah, okay, right? And that's
right.
Often a voice of, I'm impressed. I cannot think of a time where I wasn't impressed with the response time, right? This is amazing to me that this is so broken. Why is it so broken? Because it's not that hard to route a lead to a salesperson, and the right salesperson at that. Why is it so hard?
The systems are broken. There's another thing, if we had more time, speaking of soapboxes, we have this technology glut problem where we've bought so much technology and it's not configured correctly. When we don't know what to do and we're not hitting our numbers, what do? We either hire more capacity or we buy technology. We actually don't go look at the process. We don't go train our people. We don't go do what, frankly, you do for your clients. We go buy tech. And so think about it. If you've got a website buried behind some Marketo forms, buried behind some, whatever lead routing, that then goes into Salesforce, that then goes into this, that goes into this. I've got channel conflict. I've got that's what happens. In fact, InsideSales.com, we kind of invented this whole space. And when I say kind of, we invented the space. Yet, we still screwed it up. We found a massive bucket of our leads. These are hand raisers who said, yep, we like what you do. We want to learn more. We want to see the product. That we're never getting a phone call because we had a broken process. We did this. So I could be critical, but then I got to own it. It's easy to take your eye off this ball.
Yeah. And this is very typical, right? if you hear your chief sales officer, if you're in marketing and you hear the chief sales officer say, your leads suck, there's not enough leads, I don't get enough good leads, we have to do it on our own. And then if you hear marketing say, your follow-through sucks and your follow-through is not following through and you're not responding to the leads that we're giving you and you're dispositioning them without actually even making the phone call, that's where you know you've got a problem in the process.
Exactly.
Right? But by the way, we're a small 30-person organization, and this is the same exact conversation that I'm hearing from our chief sales officer to our chief marketing officer, and our chief marketing officer back to our chief sales officer. So no matter how big you get, or how small you are, or how big you are, it's the same exact thing. But you hit the nail on the head, which was the same thing that I said to both of them, and they said back to me, which is, wait a minute, hold on, time out. Before you say it sucks, and hold on, time out, before you say that your leads are amazing, let's go look at the data and find out how many actually are routing through to you. What is our conversion from MQL to SQL? What does the lead scoring look like? Whoa, wait a minute. What's happening once it goes from here to here to here? Who's touching it? How long does it take? What is the response time? How many outreaches are we making? I'm a data guy. I'm a huge data.
Yeah.
And if you don't have the data, if you don't got the data, you better get it.
And let me tell you how easy it is. That's the irony. We don't watch. So all you have to do is you have to go get, your spouse's email address and name and fill out your own web form. Like, that's it. And just watch and see what happens. Like, we don't have to over-engineer this. Like, so when you say, if you don't got the data, it is literally that simple. Take your son's email address, put it in there, and just see how quickly they respond back. Do they call back? Do they email? Do they actually send a social media interact? That's how simple it is to know.
Wow. Okay. So that's extremely insightful. And so for any salesperson or leader, quite frankly, and most importantly, that's listening to this, I think that we have to ask ourselves, what does our Cadence program look like and how many touches are we making? Because if we're going over to, and what I've heard before, 22 touches, right? 22 touches is part of your, for God's sakes, go find fresh meat, right? Go find something else that you can go sink your teeth into, right? The other one that you mentioned is, this is the one I love the most, Dave. I hear this all the time. Oh, social media? Our guys are all over LinkedIn. Oh, yeah, they're absolutely using it. Right. Really? So let me ask you, are you having cold calling days? Absolutely. We got to have a cold calling prospecting day. Okay, cool. Are you having LinkedIn days? Well, no. Why would I have LinkedIn days? Well, how do you know they're using it? Are you tracking it? Are you looking at it? Can you put it into Salesforce? Well, no. I mean, they say they're telling me they're using LinkedIn. Now, I'm not saying it has to be LinkedIn. It could be video. Like, if it's not social, go video. Wait, how many videos did you create? Are you tracking how many times they've actually sent a video? When are they putting it into their Cadence model? So my point is that those are some of the challenges that we're seeing and hearing, and the empirical data from your sales Cadence study showed we need to diversify our omni-channel approach to prospecting. Not 2,
exactly.
Go to 3, and I think you mentioned 3 to 4, increased it by 400%. So 4, let's give it to them. Phone, email, social, video.
That works. I'll use one quick example, and I know we may not get to the other research, but this is interesting enough. Our customer success managers who own our mid-market segment, right? Companies, 50 employees, 500 employees, that kind of range. We went on a LinkedIn campaign where all they did is they did a LinkedIn connection to 4 groups: power users of our product, the IT leader, the manager, the sales leader, and the sponsor. And what they also did is they then gave me a list of every sponsor executive in each of our accounts. And I did a LinkedIn reach out to just say, hey, wanted to reach out. If you ever need me, this is my LinkedIn information. I'd love to help if you ever need anything. Well, sure enough, I'll bet you I had some number. I won't tell you the number. I had a measurable number of those customers saying, look, I appreciate you actually reaching out. I do have some issues. Could you help here? Or could you help here? They were benign problems that were not getting voiced. And so by using a different media like this that we'd never reached out before, it opened it up. It increased our customer sat. It's that simple.
You've just described exactly one of the techniques that we teach inside of our Selling with LinkedIn training program to sales reps. And that is, when you book a meeting with a prospect, you send that calendar invitation meeting out. Once you hit send, open it back up. add your sales leader to the calendar invites. This way, the prospect doesn't necessarily see that you have invited that individual, because the sales manager might not be able to make it. Even if they're able to make it or not, doesn't matter. You add it to them. What does a sales manager then do? Anywhere between 24 to 48 hours before the event takes place, the sales manager is responsible for connecting with that individual on LinkedIn and letting Susie or Billy or Mary or whoever it is that the prospect's name is, hi, Susie. I just wanted to let you know that John Smith, my sales rep, invited me to attend this particular meeting. Unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to attend, but I wanted to make sure that you had a connection to a senior leadership team. I'm looking forward to potentially working with you guys if that's what it comes to be. Here's my connection request. Thanks so much, Mario. Now, why do we want to do that?
Simple and brilliant. It's brilliant. It's so simple. In fact, I just said it. It adds one more media. You connect to someone in a way that they're not typically connected to. Like you just bridged, and you probably just went from 2 to 3 media types by doing that.
And on top of that, here's the next part. You hit the nail on the head. The next part, though, is and I don't know if we're going to get to this about content sharing, but here's the deal. Your sales rep is now connected to buyer A. Your manager is now connected to buyer A. Your sales rep is hopefully sharing valuable content into their social network, which gives the opportunity for that buyer to potentially see this. Your manager better be doing the same dang thing. And now you've got basically 2 people in the organization that are disseminating information that's 2 more touches than your competitor is doing. And I guarantee you your competitors aren't doing this. And oh, by the way, from a sales leadership perspective, if your churn is high, 20%, 10%, whatever the number is, your sales rep churns, you, Mr. Manager or Mrs. Manager, still have that connection.
It's so easy, but brilliant.
So easy. And it's not rocket science. And when people hear this, it's like, hey, I would love people to pay us thousands of dollars per user for our sales skills-based training program. But guess what? That's free. Now, sales leaders, hopefully you're hearing this, go make that change right now. Or sales rep, go add your sales rep to every single meeting invite that you've got and tell them, here's the script I want you to send, connect with my buyer. Because that touch is exactly what Dave just talked about, that extra 3rd or 4th touch through a different medium to a different person that makes that buyer feel important. And they are.
And look, if you're listening to this podcast either live or even after the fact, let me tell you what you just got. You could actually hang up right now. You could actually be like, all right, I'm good. I just got enough. Because your efforts, you just got a 4x improvement, right? So I'm one person trying to do my job. Now I'm 4 people. I just got a 4x improvement by that one piece of advice. So like you guys actually, if you're bored of us, you can drop, you got what you needed. Now we got more, but you got enough.
I love it. I love it. Now listen, you guys also did a study about email prospecting. And this is a favorite topic of mine now. We've got maybe about 15 minutes left here on the show. Let's spend some time talking about that, because this data that you just shared about sales cadence, super valuable. I took a bunch of stuff away, and Kurt Shaver, our chief sales officer, I know that he's going to be listening to this while he's doing his morning runs. So he's going to be loving this one as well, because I'm calling him out. Kurt Shaver, listen to this one. But that having been said, talk about the email prospecting study that you did and any insights that we can glean from that.
Yeah. So if you think about the Cadence study, that's a high level. Like that's a big picture. We've looked into each of the different medium. So we've done detail. I thought it'd be interesting to just dig into this one. So this is a click down in, okay, when you are using email, how should you use email? And look, there's some counterintuitive learnings from this thing. And the problem is somebody does a study once and then we all do it and we stop thinking about it. And I think that's what's happened with email. And I'll give you an example. So what we found is you should be sending emails when you're trying to send, engage with a leader or executive, regardless of, whatever industry or segment you're selling into, between 4 and 5 p.m. is your best time to be sending that versus, the rest of the day. And it kind of climbs, from the morning all the way to that 4 or 5 p.m. and then begins to drop off. And if you do that, you're going to find that you have about 20% better open rates than if you average the rest of the day's open rates. So you're going to get a 21% higher open rate. The second one, and it's tied to it. So before we talk about them, I want to bundle the second one in. If you've got an attachment that you want somebody to download, for example, a proposal, a slide deck, whatever. If you're trying to send something, I don't know why, but an hour later is actually a lot better. Not a little better, a lot better. It's almost 65% better than the average of the day. So think about it. If I'm just sending an email between 4 and 5 p.m., not my time, but in the respective time of where I'm sending it. And if I want someone to actually look at my proposal, my attachment, send it an hour later between 5 and 6. Now, I've got theories, but I want to hear what you think about that.
Well, just so I understand it, let me break this down. So I'm prospecting you, Dave. You're in Mountain Standard Time. And so I send you a message between 4 and 5 local your time, right? That's what you're saying.
That's right.
Okay. And that increases my open rate of my potential email by 20%.
Yep. Versus if I average the rest of the business hours.
Okay. Got it. But now what you're saying is if I have an attachment that I should follow up with a second message with that attachment an hour later, or maybe I misunderstood.
Well, no. So if I've got an email that doesn't have an attachment, send that one between 4 and 5. If I have an email that has an attachment, send that between 5 and 6.
Oh, I missed that one. Okay. All right. Got it. Wow. Something with an attachment between 5 and 6. And boy, this is fabulous because I've had no empirical data, none whatsoever, none, zero, zip, zilch, no empirical data that I could use to guide what I'm about to say. Because I would always tell folks, is why are we prospecting between 8 and 12 o'clock in the afternoon? I always prospected at the evening hours between 4 and 6.
Wow.
Always. Why? Because
that's brilliant.
It never made sense to me. And as I got moved through the organization and people would open these calling days and people wanted to have prospecting days, I'd be like, why are we doing this at this time? It makes no sense. They're in the middle of meetings. You cannot get me, and I'm a CEO of a small company, you cannot get me between the hours of 8:30 and 4 o'clock. But after 4 o'clock, everything starts to die down. In fact, an individual reached out to me and we did a call at 11 o'clock last night. Now, mind you, they're international. And so they reached out to me. It was a very, very large technology organization. And they said they wanted to have a conversation. I happened to be up. I was doing some work. My kids are asleep. Let's do a call. So we were able to do that. Now, obviously, that's not going to happen. That's not normal. But my point is you get the downtime that after the work hours are dedicated to collaborating, to working, to talking, to communicating, and not for I want to take a call, which is why I think people get so irritated with the cold callers, during that. You're interrupting my workflow.
Again, I love it. And I think you hit it. I think you hit the problem on the head. When are most power hours or calling blitzes? It's typically somewhere between 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. It's like, hey, I'm going to come in, I'm juiced up, I'm going to get my calling done, and then I'll do my follow-up in the rest of the day. And it's actually backwards. That's what I'm saying. This is counterintuitive. Nobody does this right. There's research out there that's telling people you should send emails at 7 a.m. so that it's in their inbox before their workday. But here's the problem. Guess what everybody does? They send emails at 7 a.m. so that there's a stack of, I probably get 400 emails, every day. And if you're at the bottom of that stack, I guarantee I'm never going to get to you. In fact, I have an assistant that her job is to try and sort through this to make sure that I'm engaging with customers and important people that, that I've got to make sure that I respond to. But if you're just prospecting to me, you're at the bottom of the list. So this was so impactful. We actually created a product in our system. We call it Neural Send. You're going to laugh at this. But rather than sending the email, when you click Neural Send, it queues it up for when the person you're talking to is most likely sitting down and engaging in email. So you just said something at 11 p.m. Guess when I typically check my email? About 10, 11 p.m. Well, I got to work, so I got a full-time job. I got kids, and I want to come home, and I want to spend time with my kids. I'm married, and I happen to love my wife, so I want to spend a little time with her. And so, she's kind of done by about 10 or 11. I'm going to check email, and I'm going to respond to email. So even though I'm giving you some general best practices, know your audience. Know that senior executives, there's a multi-billion-dollar company. In fact, I'd say, multi-hundred-billion-dollar company. They're a customer of ours. The CEO of that company, again, I'll say this, they're a multi-hundred-billion-dollar market cap company. And that CEO responds to me typically after 11 p.m.
Yeah.
So there's a pattern here, right? So the point of this is just rule of thumb, generally speaking, send your emails when they could have downtime to think about it. And on the way home, just an email without an attachment, I can take a second, between 4 and 5. But if I need to really engage in something, if I'm going to download it and look at it, I probably need even a little more time than I have between 4 and 5. I think that's the I think you're right. I think that's the interpretation of this one.
Wow. Yeah. No, very insightful. And my team knows that unfortunately, every time they wake up every single morning, they've got 75 emails from me between 10 o'clock at night and 2 o'clock in the morning. Because
exactly.
Like 6 o'clock, it's cutoff time. My wife comes in, knocks on the door, and says, it's family time. All right. Now we're eating dinner. Now we're playing basketball outside with my boys. Now the boys go to bed. Now I got to, because I love my wife too, and I want to stay married. Now I'm going to sit down and talk with her, spend time with her. She's usually done by 9 o'clock. And after that, then it's time for, now I can reconvene and take
follow-up.
Business follow-up. Yeah. So same exact model. I mean, this is again, we're talking about a CEO of a small business, myself, a CEO, Dave himself, of a nice medium-sized business. And then to your point, you gave the example of the CEO of a large-sized business. None of our schedules and how we do things are any different from each other.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's really amazing. Now, I'll throw a couple other, let's not go into as much detail, but a couple other interesting best practices. We found the subject line, when you're writing your subject line, you want it to be 1 to 3 words at most, 1 to 3 words, and no more than 6 to 10 characters. So not only are they just a couple of words, you got to keep them short, you got to keep them simple, you got to be to the point. So we make the mistake of making our interests and our problems other people. So we tend to write way too long emails. We tend to write way too rich of subject lines, and it is dramatically better. You're looking at 50% better, depending on what metric we're looking at. So lesson learned, be simple, be straightforward. People like you, people like me, the buyers of what we do, they don't have time to go read your 5-paragraph email. They've got probably 5 lines. You just don't have that much.
So clarify, you said 1 to 3 words, 6 to 10 characters total, or 6 to 10?
Total.
That's hard.
Tight.
That's
right?
very tight. Yeah. That's almost next to impossible for me.
Exactly. And I'll double check, right? But that's what the data says. It's just got to be punchy. It's got to be quick. It's got to be straightforward.
Yeah.
Not verbose, which again, it's a problem for me.
I read the report.
You and I clearly have the same problem.
No, I read the report and I saw that was the data inside there. And I just thought, my God, how do I make that? Like, it's very difficult. But what it requires you to be is succinct. Now, I don't have any empirical data to support this, what I'm about to say, but when we talk about prospecting on LinkedIn as an example, one of the biggest mistakes that people make is they'll send, like you mentioned, the 25-paragraph long message, right? The this, the that, the blah, 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 blah. So the reality is what you want to be thinking about is send that message to yourself and see if it's a one-touch scroll. Anything beyond one-touch scroll. And if you're not looking, you're not watching this, you're audibly listening to the podcast, I'm referring to you're scrolling up on your screen one time. Anything beyond that, buyers are not going to read. Just won't. That's too much. It's too much reading. So one touch scroll at most is what your prospecting messages should look like. And of course, we have our Selling with LinkedIn cold prospecting messages that we teach. Now, interestingly enough, on the templates, love what you said. We do teach templates, but our templates require the sales rep to fill in the blanks based upon the circumstance. And we have 2 different scenarios. You are personalizing to the person, or you are personalizing to the buyer persona. And with that in mind, we don't give you the content. You got to make sure that you understand that even though the persona may say, you're selling to a marketing leader as an example, you may have 100 different pieces of content available to that marketer. Our job is to figure out, is there one of those 100 pieces that I could use that maps best to this particular buyer within the buyer persona, which may be different from the same exact CMO that you might be selling to at a different organization, just based upon what they're talking about, what they're writing about, what they're posting about, those types of things. So we do believe in templates. I know you guys use templates as well, but as a sales rep, you've got to be thinking about, it's not one size fits all. This is a baseline. The baseline gets you at least 60% of the way there, maybe 75% of the way. The other 25%, you better think like Amazon does, Netflix does, just like personalize.
That's it. And look, when I talked about the problem with the templates, it's not that people are using the same template with merged information within the company. I'm actually talking a step much worse than that. A Cadence solution may have a library of these, and they're using the same thing across all companies. So it's like what you just described is exactly right. Go to the marketing team, find out what email content seems to be most applicable, go find out how to personalize it, like you said, by persona, by industry, and go find, one or two key, when I'm about to engage with you, I can see on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on Instagram, I can find out, like, do you like to ski? Are you a surfer? Do you hunt? Do you fish? Personalize it a little bit and actually invest. And look, we all know it's a template, but if I see that you spent a little bit of time learning about me, I respect you more.
Absolutely. Well, and also too, you can't go wrong when you include valuable content if it's valuable. And that's a marketing related problem and another related topic.
Right. Exactly. You're exactly right.
Man, this has been a fantastic conversation. Fabulous insights for a sales leader to go walk away from this conversation and literally take their playbook and go make some tweaks and some changes to their prospecting programs and those types of things. Dave, if someone wants to get connected to you, what's the best way? Is it through Twitter, through LinkedIn? What's the best way?
I'm a LinkedIn guy. And look, I know you are, like, we do a lot of social stuff together, but just look me up on LinkedIn, InsideSales.com, Dave Elkington, there's one of me. And I will always connect back.
And we will make sure we put Dave's links into the show notes. And Dave, is it okay? Can we have some links back to the Sales Cadence and Email Prospecting Research Report to your landing pages?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll give you links to that. And there's a couple other interesting points that we may share with you also.
Love it. Before the last and final thing, for all you listening in, make sure that if you heard Dave on Selling with Social, when you connect with him, please do not send him a generic request. Let him know.
You'll kill me.
Let him know you heard him on Selling with Social podcast. And my last question for you, my friend, is your all-time favorite movie. What is it?
I knew you were going to ask me because I've seen you do this before, and there's like so many options. It's going to be somewhere between, I'm going to pick two because I just am that indecisive. It's either Billy Madison, like pretty much any Adam Sandler movie, right? I have that virus, and Nacho Libre. You know how we all have that movie when you're feeling sick, you're like depressed, you're bored, and you put that movie and you're on a plane and you're like, I've got 12 hours of flight. I'm headed to the UK or whatever. Nacho Libre is that movie for me. I can quote it word for word, the entire movie. My kids are sick of it.
You like my stretchy pants.
Exactly. Oh, geez. I'm not going to quote it because my kids will listen to this and they will make fun of me.
If we were on video, you would see Dave standing up holding the doorpost right now and he's squeezing his butt cheeks.
Exactly. In my stretchy pants.
In your stretchy pants. I love it.
Exactly.
Fantastic, man. Well, listen, all of you listening in right now to Selling with Social, do not tune out. Make sure you listen to this important message right here, right now. Hey, thanks for listening to the Selling with Social Sales Podcast. Did you enjoy that show? If so, would you do me a huge favor and give the Selling with Social podcast a rating and review on iTunes? That would be super awesome. Also, if you want to easily find our show, just go to Vengreso.com. That's Vengreso.com and click on podcast. From there, you'll find the Selling with Social podcast. Thanks for listening in. And until the next show, be awesome. Mario Martinez Jr. out. Don't forget to check out the AAISP's 11th Annual Sales Leadership Summit in Chicago, April 16th through the 18th. Visit aa-isp.org. Click Leadership Summit 2019 and use the code Vengreso 30%.